Welcome to the Live Alive podcast. Welcome back. I'm Pez.
I'm Chris.
I am Jeremy.
And I'm Dylan.
And this is
The Live Alive podcast.
It's just the Live Alive podcast.
and that's all that it is.
Nothing more, nothing less. Welcome. Did you ever think we'd make it this far?
I don't know.
I sure didn't, but I'm glad we did because we've had some amazing things happening. Let's recap the last two episodes before this one.
So the first thing that happened was we asked people, what do they want?
Right. And it's all about something that happened in the Bob Goff interview when he's talking about his wanter.
Yeah, and it turned into him showing us a compass that he carries around in his pocket. Mm-hmm. And he asks us which way is north. And of course, we're pointing all different directions. And it was interesting because it makes you think, like, on a day-to-day basis, what am I making decisions based on?
Mm-hmm. What do you want? And we went to a major college campus, asked some people what do they want. And at the end of the day, everyone kind of had either really bland answers or they didn't know. It was just interesting just to hear them talk because people don't really consider that. We just do and act. And then we flipped the question in episode 5 where it was like, okay, we kind of don't know what we want, but what does God want? And we asked some people coming in outside of a church on a Sunday what they want, and that was interesting as well. We talked about it.
Got a few honest answers, but some church answers as well.
Yeah. It's hard to get honest answers from church people.
Especially coming out of church, because you've just been filled up with like what you think is like, well, this is the right answer. It doesn't matter what I'm actually thinking or feeling.
Right.
This is the correct answer, so I'm going to give this one.
Yeah, exactly. So, but we came away from it with saying, well, what does God want? He wants us. And that was a profound answer. And, you know, we were kind of riding high with it, right? We were like, man, this is great, awesome. But then we got someone actually called in and left us a voicemail for a question that we're going to cut to right now.
Hey guys, so I've been contemplating this question ever since I heard the podcast with Bob Goff. What should one do if they feel like they are always in the role of the pig farmer? You know, he was just going about his day when he lost his whole herd when Jesus cast the demons into them. I don't think Jesus hated the pig farmer or meant ill will towards him, but he still got the rotten end of someone else's miracle. And I think often about people who are doing the best they can, you know, loving God, loving others, and not that anything necessarily awful happens to them, but they keep seeing the miracles and blessings happening around them, but not ever really happening to them. Or maybe life does seem to continue throwing harder situations at them at no real fault of their own. What would you say to them to encourage them on their journey with God? Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. So what do you think about that? This whole idea of the pig farmer. Can you guys recap what Bob said in the earlier episodes about being a pig farmer?
Yeah, so the story is where Jesus, is kind of walking in a little town, and they came upon a man who was demon-possessed. Mm-hmm. And he addresses the demon-possessed man and actually cast the demon out. But the demon requested to not be, cast out, but actually to be thrown into the pigs. Mm-hmm. And so Jesus obliged the demons in this case. And so what ended up being the best day in the world for the man who was set free from all of this oppression ended up being a really bad day for someone else. And that's what Bob was talking about. It's just kind of saying that sometimes you experience the other side of it, where God is working around you, but it doesn't feel like it's really going really well for you.
So does that relate to any of you guys?
Well, I mean, we had a pretty rough situation in our home church this last week. Someone's child pretty much almost drowned to death. Luckily, someone was there to perform CPR, but there was just all this heaviness that comes along with that. And
I got home, I had pulled in the driveway, and I get a phone call from Dylan, who's just kind of frantic. And Dylan doesn't ever call me frantic. He's a pretty even-keeled guy, especially after being exhausted from making knives all day long.
Yep.
And I get this phone call, and he's like, Pez, what are you doing right now? He's like, I am in the car. I'm on the way to the hospital. which instantly like sends up all of your.
Sure. Spidey
I'm like,
senses.
what's going on? And my imagination went 100 different directions. And I was like, Dylan, I'm on my way. Let me step in and tell Mariah what's going on because she's expecting me for dinner right now. So I walked in, kissed my wife, walked back out, and we're headed to the hospital. And it was a pretty stressful thing, you know. And at the moment, we didn't know exactly what was going on.
Right.
Yeah, it's really you know, that's a difficult question in all of this when it comes down to it, is when you're actually either suffering, which it sounds like the person who, you know, asked this question probably is. You know, there's sorrow and suffering in the question, or you're going through these like traumatic and really trying circumstances, like what happened. I mean, so far, I mean, just to give the update on what's going on in our community, so far, everything's going really well. But this is still like a touch and go situation. It was really, really scary, really bad. We just found that like Jesus has been answering all the prayers we've prayed over the situation. And it's one of those situations where like doctors keep coming by and are kind of shocked at how well everything is going. And so we're just like, you know, Jesus performing miracles, let's keep praying for more in the midst of this. But yeah, when you're really chasing down the abundant life, when it's something that you're really pursuing, and difficulty and tragedy and sorrow and, you know, circumstances that are outside of your control hit, how do you navigate that?
And you think about the pig farmer, you know, this week, as I've been asking people to pray for this little boy, I've had a few people send me back a message like, well, let God's will be done. Well, what the heck does that mean? Because for this pig farmer, I guess God's will was that he just lost his entire livelihood. And it really sucks to be in that position, you know? And it sucks to be in our community right now where we feel like our children are being attacked. Because it's like one child after another has something happen to them. And
yeah, this is the second child in 2 weeks that's had something pretty traumatic.
yeah. Yeah, I don't have any answers for this, honestly. I understand where this person's at and feeling like they're seeing God do miracles all around them, but
I think it gives me kind of like shudders when someone says, let God's will be done. It's like, are you a robot? Like, what are you talking about? Like, do you not understand what I just said? That is a weird response to like a crisis moment.
And on the opposite end of that is our caller who's just being so honest. Just kind of saying, all right, so I believe in God. I see him working, but somehow I'm not feeling the impact of that. I'm not feeling like I'm experiencing abundant life right now.
Yeah.
And I think if we're honest, like, we've been there. We've been there before. In some ways, we're experiencing a little bit right now. Though God has met us in this, right? He still hasn't fully answered all of our prayers.
Right.
And I think, you know, in the comment of let God's will be done, there is an aspect of truth there, right? But at the same time, it's not the whole truth. It's not, like if you even look at how Jesus prayed that prayer, you know, think of like sweating blood. Right before he said, your will be done, he was praying that God would do something different. He was asking that if this cup can be passed, if I cannot have to walk through this, that's what I want.
And he tried it like 2 times in a row.
Oh yeah,
And then
absolutely.
The third time, yeah.
And then he says, but your will be done. So that it can represent a deeper trust that like God is good, he's in control, and he loves us. And his ultimate will we do want if we believe that he is those 3 things. Because his ultimate will is for our good. It's to bring us into right relationship with him, right relationship with each other, to actually cause us to live abundant and free lives. But man, in the midst of it, I think even if we want to follow, be followers of Jesus, we can pray like Jesus prayed. We can be experiencing, the pigs, our pigs running off the cliff and our livelihood destroyed, and pleading with God for another way. And he might meet you there and relent and do something different. We see stories of that in the Bible too, that I don't understand it because I believe, that God is in control, but he also seems to change his mind based on prayer and seems to change his ways based on prayer. And he invites us into a relationship. He's much more interested in the relationship with us because that's what he created us for. That is what is our ultimate good is for. So even going back, I think of the question actor, if you want to go back to a lot of what Bob Goff said about living the abundant life, where that's found is in deep, abiding, white knuckle needing of King Jesus in your life. And a lot of times, all of our pigs running off the cliff is the only way that gets us there.
Yeah. I know that Shevis, your wife, actually mentioned how the parents of this little boy are doing, what a miracle it is that they're actually trusting God right now.
Yeah.
And this is the perfect opportunity for them to just be pissed at God and because of the situation, but it's this miracle working power that God is doing in them by allowing them to trust Him in this season.
One thing that I've spoken with a number of people over the years who take suffering and things that are hard or situations where you feel like you're not experiencing the abundant life as proof that God doesn't exist, and that's an honest answer too, to kind of say like, hey, if this stuff happens, and usually what you hear is, well, if God is all loving and if He's all powerful, why would He allow these things to happen? And this week I was reading, and kind of some of the thoughts that were coming out of that were this idea that God is loving and He is powerful and He has a will and a purpose, and yet during this time He is allowing many things to occur that He doesn't like. There's things that happen that are outside of what He loves and what He likes.
And what He intended.
Yeah, and what He intended. And that there's something that we have to do with that. There's a part that humans play in that. So you look at suffering around the world, and there's places where there are wars and selfishness and things like that that are playing into that, and greed. And God He doesn't like those things, but He allows them. So.
Well, I think it was interesting, this whole question, and when we got the girl on campus whose name was Amani, who we asked the question, well, let's hear it. What question did we ask Amani, and what did she say?
What do you think God wants?
Us.
So she said what we all felt was a very profound answer, us. And but then we actually asked her, we called her back up, we said, Amani, do you ever feel like there's times where God's not pursuing you? And how do you deal with that? And this was the voice call that she left us.